Sam, I'll ask you before I show the list. And JB, Lucas, do we have the list potentially now? Okay, 1 second. So I want to ask you, Sam, if I told you there's a top 10 MVP list, do you think Jared Goff should be on it before I even show you who's on it? Do you think Jared Goff should be a top 10 MVP candidate? Guys, you comment down below in the chat thread, woodwardsports.com. Should Jared Goff be in the top 10 MVP candidates list?
Without looking at the list and on just first initial reaction, I would say maybe 9 or 10. I just think if the Lions are good and if their offense looks as good as they did last year and their defense improves and Jared Goff has another great year and they win 11 or 12 games, how could Jared Goff not get MVP votes? And that's my initial thoughts.
Okay, so you say yes, should be back end, 9 or 10, you're saying, and I think that's fair. Everybody in the chat, I see a couple no's, I see a yes, more no's. And again, for Jared Goff to be in an MVP consideration, it's all about numbers. It's all about statistics. And this is a quarterback last year that was top 10, top 5 in some categories. Had a great year last year. But in Jared Goff's career, even in LA, he wasn't even an MVP candidate. No. He was in the conversation, but Todd Gurley was higher on that list than him. So, again, this is a list for quarterbacks you win because of. And again, people get offended when I say that. Jared Goff is a great quarterback. I think he's top 10 in the league. I think he's top 2 in the NFC. Saying that he isn't a quarterback like a Josh Allen, Herbert, Mahomes, so on and so forth, doesn't mean he's trash. It just means there's a different type of quarterback than Jared. And if he isn't on this list, and Lucas, throw it up for me, and you guys can take a peek at it. And there you go. So for Jared Goff, for him to be on an MVP list, and you see it right here, Mahomes is number 1, obviously at plus 650. Josh Allen second, plus 800. Joe Burrow tied with those odds, plus 800. Hurts tied with those odds, plus 800. Justin Herbert, plus 1,200. You don't have a problem with any of these guys so far, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, top 5 is pretty consensus. Lamar Jackson, plus 1,200. Aaron Rodgers, plus 1,400. I know you love that. Despicable. 18, Trevor Lawrence, plus 1,400. Tua Tagovailoa, plus 1,600. And then coming in at number 10, the only NFC North quarterback, would have been Aaron, but he's gone now, plus 1,600 for Justin Fields. He made this list. Blasphemous. And again, I hear you, Stephen A. It is blasphemous, but let me just break this down a little bit, okay? And I'll give you my side, and then Sam, I want your initial reactions to it. When I look at this list, the first 9 I have no issue with, if I'm being honest with you. The first 9, I think it's pretty consensus for the most part. You look at the situation these quarterbacks are in, the numbers they could potentially put up. I mean, even Tua Tagovailoa, however you feel about him, the only thing really you look at is just staying healthy. The one I'm curious about more so in the top 9 is Aaron Rodgers. Like, I know he's coming off back-to-back MVP seasons, but I'm curious what happens with the New York Jets. He came off a year he had last year. Maybe Aaron Rodgers rebounds and surprises everybody. But again, if it ends like Brett Favre did, he won't be in this MVP consideration. But Justin Fields at 10. I want to discuss Justin Fields at 10, okay? And this is per BetUS, by the way. These are the odds. I was shocked at first when I saw this list, Sam. When I first saw it, I'm like, Justin Fields. And then I really think about it. And I sat there and I go, you know what? If we're talking about MVP, most valuable player, Justin Fields is a more dynamic player than Jared Goff and what he does with his legs. If you're bringing up the actual term MVP, if Justin Fields comes out this year, and again, the question I have is, can you throw as many touchdown passes as Jared Goff did last year? I mean, that's quite a leap from what he did last season. But if he is even close, or he's in that ballpark, and he runs for 1,000 yards and has double-digit rushing touchdowns, and they win now, I don't think the Bears are going to win 10 games, but hell, let's just say they do. To me, he's in that MVP conversation more so than Jared, because even if Jared, and I think they'll win 11 games, Jared Goff, I don't think will have monster numbers, and you'll look at Jared and say, they're winning because of Jared. You're going to look at the offensive line. I think they're going to run the ball a lot more because they don't have J-Mo the first 6 weeks, so it's not all going to be on Goff's shoulders. I can see a scenario in which Justin Fields, everything's on his shoulders from game 1 to game 17, Sam. Am I wrong for that? What are your thoughts on that? Fields at 10.
Not only are you not wrong, during an episode, I forgot what episode it was, of one of the shows I was on, I actually picked that Justin Fields might be a dark horse MVP candidate. I said dark horse for the record before everybody jumps down my throat at this point. That's why you look at these lists, because of course what I said initially was that when you think Jared Goff not a top 10 MVP candidate, at first you're kind of like the inner Lions fan in me who expects them to do well this year and expects Jared Goff to do well just kind of cringes a little bit like how can that be? But then when you look at the list, we talked about it earlier. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert. 5 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Nobody has a problem with that, or you shouldn't at least.
Right.
Lamar Jackson has won an MVP before. I don't know if he'll ever get back to prime form, but he's actually done it, and he's an elite runner, and he actually was very, very good when he played. Aaron Rodgers, I obviously think a lot higher of him than you do going into New York. I think that he's going to have a bounce-back season. He's 2 years removed from back-to-back MVPs. Mm-hmm. It's not like it happened 10 years ago. And then, of course, Trevor Lawrence, I think, should be higher. Tua, he gets a Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill as his weapons. I think he'll do very well. But back to the aforementioned Justin Fields. People seem to forget that Justin Fields just came off one of the greatest rushing seasons by a quarterback ever. You could even argue the greatest. I know Lamar Jackson in 2019 would probably have something to say about it, but Justin Fields was a force of nature as a running quarterback. He was one of the most dynamic threats with his legs of any single player in the National Football League. And people act like Justin Fields was just this terrible trash quarterback last year. I seem to recall some games where Justin Fields would lead his team to over 30 or 29, and the defense was just piss poor. The Bears were the worst defense in the NFL last year. That was the reason why the Bears were 3-14, not all because of Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, do people not remember that they traded for DJ Moore in this past offseason?
They did.
He's probably going to be their wide receiver number 1. Another offseason, a full offseason of Chase Claypool. I know Chase Claypool didn't do really jack shit for the Bears last season, but I think he's a very, very serviceable 2 or 3 wide receiver. And then Darnell Mooney getting a chance to play his more natural role as the number 2 receiver or the number 3. And I think Cole Kmet is a damn good tight end. And they added Nate Davis on the offensive line in the offseason, and they drafted Darnell Wright in the first round. I think Justin Fields is going to have a very, very good season. And with his threat as a passer and as a runner, he might put up astronomical numbers. Maybe not astronomical, but...
Well, I think it has to be astronomical.
If he's going to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? Although I just mentioned I understand the logic because I think more responsibility on both of their offense, more responsibility will be on Justin Fields because, again, with his legs and what he does, let's be real here, okay? Like, let's keep it a stack. For Justin Fields to win MVP, and you brought up Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson had a tremendous year. The year he won MVP with his legs, well over 1,000 yards rushing. But you know what he did? 36 passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like, we can't just gloss over that. Like, for Justin Fields to be higher on this list, who do you have more faith in to achieve those types of numbers? If you would have more faith in Goff or more faith in Fields, to me, I would ride with Goff. Although given, Fields, and you mentioned it, DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, at least initially, he'll have all his weapons ready and available. J-Mo comes back in 6 weeks, so I guess there's that part of it. But Jared Goff last year, guys, they won 9 games. He was top 5 in touchdowns. He was top 5 in QBR. He was top 6 in yards. If we're going statistically what they'll do plus team success, he might not have the rushing yards Justin Fields had last year, but I'm telling you right now, Jared Goff will have better passing MVP numbers, at least in my opinion, if he can repeat what he did last season. And if the Lions win 11 games, he should be higher on an MVP list. Because I don't think the Bears are going to win 10 games. I think they'll win 7, 8 games. So if they win 7, 8 games and Fields, let's say, passes for 20 passing touchdowns, which, congratulations, we've been waiting on that his first 2 years in the NFL. If he does that, you're not an MVP candidate. Like, Jared Goff will be closer to 30 touchdowns. I'm assuming he'll hit double-digit interceptions. But regardless, he'll still have 4,500 yards. And if his team wins 11 games, 12 games, Sam, that should be a higher MVP candidate than Justin Fields.
I can see your point. As I said, I think there's actually a chance that Jared Goff might even have better numbers this next year than the year before. Another year under Ben Johnson. Jamison Williams being a much bigger part of the offense when he comes back. Another year of Amon-Ra St. Brown, full intact offensive line. I think that he could potentially have another great season. But Justin Fields, it wouldn't shock me at all if he threw for 25 touchdowns and rushed for 1,000 yards and maybe had 10 rushing touchdowns. And for the record, I'm not saying that Justin Fields is going to win the MVP. I don't want people to get it twisted.
Well, just between Goff and Fields. That's the argument.
I would... Oh, God, that's so tough. if the Detroit Lions accomplish what we expect them to accomplish in terms of winning, I think you'd probably have to give it to Jared Goff, especially if it's mostly because of the offense. If they have another top 5 offense, if Jared Goff even takes a slight step back, I think one of the reasons why Jared Goff wasn't in any sort of MVP conversation this year was because the Lions didn't ultimately make the playoffs, which was not his fault, by the way.
Right.
In a macro level, it was 100% the defense's fault. I'm just saying, a lot of people really sleep on Justin Fields and acts like he sucks or he can't throw or anything like that. You guys better watch out. The weapons that Justin Fields and the offensive line that he had to work with this past year, and the defense that was consistently giving up 35, 40, that defense was horrible.
Right.
No quarterback could have succeeded under those circumstances. And I get it. Justin Fields didn't always look impressive as a passer. There were some games where he would lead him to an early lead and wouldn't really be able to finish. He had a propensity to be a little bit too loose with the football.
Right.
But this is the year where Justin Fields really has to put up or shut up, or all my faith in him will have to go away. And I expect him to respond. And we already know that he is an elite, all-time great runner with the football from the quarterback position.
No, absolutely, but there is part of his game that we have yet to see yet, and he took the steps last year, but as a pocket passer, as not only an accurate passer, but turning the ball over, whether it's fumbling, throwing interceptions. Like, there's still more for Fields to learn. I mean, Goff has a better resume, at least in the NFL, for, like, do you have confidence he can do what he did last year? Yeah, he's done it before. Like, Fields, this would be new for everybody for him to come out and put up MVP numbers, and on top of that, he has to put up MVP wins. You got to win 9, 10, 11 games. So I don't think the Bears are going to be better than the Lions. So if the Lions have more wins and Jared Goff has better numbers passing, he should be higher on this MVP list. I don't understand it, but again, it is what it is. You have all these top 9 quarterbacks, and again, for the top 9, I don't really have too much pushback there. But for Justin Fields, like, you have all these elite quarterbacks or borderline elite quarterbacks, and then you have Fields. Like, Fields is an elite. Yet. He can be, and I'm a little higher on him than some other people. I like Justin Fields, but this is too premature. This is too living off most recent history, how exciting he was last year with his legs. He's got to just throw for over 20 touchdowns, and you got to get at least 10, 11 wins to even be in this conversation. I don't think they're doing that. So, by default, I don't see how it's going to happen.
Do you think he might get any credit, though, if the Bears maybe win 7 or 8, have an elite offense and their defense is good? I think their defense is going to be better, by the way.
Right.
They actually, especially with Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards.
But here's the question I have too with the Bears offense. They had Luke Getzky last year, pretty good OC. He was with the Packers, decent. But again, we know what Ben Johnson is. We know what impact he had on this offense. They were top 5 the year 1 he was the OC. Now Jared Goff, for really I think the first time in his career, if I'm not mistaken, has an OC returning. Like in LA, I get it was always Sean McVay, but quarterback coaches, OCs were always being hired. He has now another year with Ben Johnson. And like, again, I get J-Mo's not there, but Sam, other than that, he's got everything coming back to him. Yeah. Like, and he had a good season last year. I don't see why not. And he didn't have J-Mo really at all last season, and he put up these numbers. So other than, I guess, losing DJ Chark, which I do believe is significant to some extent, he'll be just fine.
Yeah,
Gibbs, Laporta, David Montgomery, like, they got weapons.
No, that's
that
fair.
Offensive line I didn't even mention. They got weapons.
Well, that is why at the end of the season, it wouldn't shock me at all if Jared Goff and Justin Fields are both flirting with top 10 in MVP voting. Because you mentioned Luke Getzky. Obviously, he's a very, very up-and-coming, young, talented offensive coordinator. But Ben Johnson, after this next season, I think that Ben Johnson will be the #1 head coaching commodity in all of the NFL, which shows how much faith that I have in him as an offensive coordinator. And I think Jared Goff will thrive again. I hope Jared Goff puts up better numbers than he did last year, or at least something similar. And if they win, like I said before, he will be an MVP candidate. But don't sleep on Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields, at the very least, might be, I don't even know if they have this award in the NFL, but looked at as one of the most improved players in the NFL.